Chapter 15. Not even the halls of Raven's Tower, the most fortified in the castle, could keep out the autumn chill. Janiah would remember that nip in the air for the rest of her life. It was only a short walk from her own bedchambers to her mother's, but the trip, taken with soft, hesitant steps, seemed to last forever, and the cold was her only companion. Janiah thought of Anne. In that moment she wanted nothing more than to walk to the girl from Emberfell, that strange, wonderful girl who might possibly be the only person able to understand what she was feeling. The servants in Nine Towers had always done their best to help Janiah when she was sad, but people who understood only happiness could only do so much to ease Janiah's pain. She paused outside the door to her mother's bedchambers, as she had every day since the chief healer had delivered the news of the Queen's worsening condition. The information had come with the gentle suggestion that the princess spend as much time with her mother as possible over the coming hours. And then he'd said these words, those terrible, awful words she'd always known he would say to her one day. It won't be long now. Janiah pushed open the door. The odor of rose water and mint salve nearly overpowered her. There was a time when just the hint of that salve made her smile. It smelt like her mother. Now, however, Janiah linked the scents to her growing despair. She never wanted to smell them again. She glided softly to her mother's side. Queen Sula's dark skin glistened with a feverish sweat. Her lips were chalky, and her puffy eyes stared blankly ahead. The princess almost ran from the room, unable to bear the sight. She is still your mother, she reminded herself, and she needs you. The queen wheezed and stirred, and then patted her bedside. Janiah sat on the mattress and took her mother's hand. They said you'd live a month. They said I'd live a month at most, the queen rasped. They never discussed how short my time would be. It's not fair, Janiah said, and then she looked away, ashamed. She tried so hard never to utter those words. She felt childish and weak. Queen Sula reached up and turned her daughter's face so they could speak eye to eye. It's all right to think that. It's all right to think anything you want right now. Be angry at me. Be angry at the sickness. Be angry at everything and everyone. There are no wrong feelings. Do what you need to do. Janiah did feel angry at everything and everyone. She didn't want to waste what time they had left feeling that way. It's too much. I can't even think about becoming queen while you are confined to bed. I won't leave your side. All at once it occurred to her. She'd been selfish and silly, trying to learn more about the Carse. She would send for Anne at once and stop her trips into the bog. She would do what her mother and every monarch before her had done, and ignore that accursed place. The longer she thought about it, the more she realized it was the only thing required of her to be a good queen. It was really that simple. But it wasn't. The queen took her daughter's hand, the opal rings they each wore touching as she did. There will be days to mourn me, days and nights and weeks and months and whatever time you feel you need. But you're mourning me while I'm still here. Use this time. Talk to me. It was hard for Janiah to banish her sadness. She was first a daughter whose mother was dying, and second an heir to the throne. But she needed so many answers. Her mother was right. She had to grieve and rule, for now. The ancient warning says the monarchy will fall if I enter Dreadwillow Ch. Does that mean that if I never go there, the monarchy will never fall? I'm afraid there's more to ruling than giving the Ch a wide berth, her mother said, a small smile passing across her pain-racked face. As queen, you must still provide counsel and guidance for the good of all. Tears welled in Janiah's eyes. Mother, they killed the Ruby Wings. I never told them to do that, but that was what they chose because it was quick and easy. And I told them it was fine. It was my fault. Painful as it is, sometimes we learn by failure. I lost count of the numbers of lessons I learned that way, and— But I hate that, Janiah burst out. So many people will rely on me soon, and I don't know how to lead them. Why aren't you teaching me how to be queen? The queen reached out her shaking hand and laid it on Janiah's arm. Why do you think that would help? You're a good queen. Everyone says so. You know everything. Janiah, I can't tell you how to be queen. I can only tell you how I was queen. That's very different. But that's what I want, to be just like you. Are you unhappy with Sconus?" Janaya held back a fiery desire to tell her mother exactly what she thought of her tutor. "He's cruel, sneaky, untrustworthy, and arrogant," she thought. Instead, she only frowned. "I don't always understand what he wants me to learn." "Good," the queen said. "It's nice to hear some things never change." "But he doesn't tell me anything. I ask a question. He asks a question in return. I don't think I'll ever learn anything from him." "Sconus will show you where to look for answers," the queen said, "but he won't tell you what to see." "And that will help me be queen?" It didn't seem possible. Her mother nodded. "He taught me, you know. He's been teaching monarchs for a very, very long time." Janaya blinked. How could that be? Clearly Sconus was much older than he appeared. Who is this man? Where is he from? And how, she thought, as a new idea formed, can he feel something other than happy? The only other person she knew who could do that, aside from royalty, was Anne. "Think about what you already know about him," the queen prompted. "He said he wasn't a royal subject," Janaya drawled slowly, trying to make sense of this. "He said I have no power over him." There are almost no limit to the power of the monarchy, but yes, Sconus is beyond those limits. He is here out of kindness. His kindness is hurting the monarchy. He's taking too long to teach me what I need to know. If I had to take the throne tomorrow, I couldn't." Janaya trembled, the very thought of assuming her reign the next day paralyzing her. Queen Sula wrapped her thin arms around her daughter and pulled her close. "I will tell you this much," the queen said, stroking Janaya's long, sable hair. "I believe you already know everything you need to be queen. You just don't realize it yet. That's why Sconus is here. He'll help you see what's already there." "But I'm so afraid of doing the wrong thing. If you won't tell me what to do, tell me what not to do. So many people count on me. I don't want to make mistakes." "There's only one way to ensure you never make a mistake." "What's that?" "Do nothing." Janaya thought about it. If she'd done nothing, the Ruby Wings would still be alive, but then the ravens would still be hunted by predators. But what if doing nothing is a mistake? The queen closed her eyes, a light smile returning to her lips. The words slid from between her teeth like a whispered dream. "Sconus is right. You are strangely clever." Before Janaya could respond, the queen was asleep. The princess watched her mother's chest rise and fall, just enough to keep her alive. Janaya made wishes. She uttered prayers. Then she kissed her mother's forehead and tiptoed out of the bedchambers. It wasn't until she closed the door behind her that it struck Janaya. Her mother hadn't answered the questions about why Sconus instead of the queen was teaching her. In fact, the queen had answered that question with another question. Unable to sleep that night, Janaya holed herself up in the library. The ancient tomes may not have had much to say about the Carse, but they held much knowledge about the family's history. King Izar is why we have a Carse. That was what the creatures Anne had described in her letter had said, but what did it mean? Janaya could picture King Izar, the first monarch. His portrait was the largest in the grand hall. It was the first one you noticed when you entered. When she was younger, Janaya had feared old King Izar. He had a long, careworn face with a goatee that ended in a sharp point. His eyebrows arched, challenging all who dare look. At times, Janaya swore his harsh eyes followed her wherever she went into the room. "Why does he always look so angry?" Janaya had once asked her mother. Queen Sula had laughed and said, "King Izar loved this land more than anyone else. What you see as anger, others would see as fatherly concern." At the time, Janaya's father had still been alive. His fatherly concern never looked angry. Janaya thought her mother was wrong about King Izar. But as frightening as she found the old king, it made no sense to Janaya that a monarch would create a place his descendants were forbidden to enter. Janaya thought about the castle ruins Anne had described. She had never heard of her ancestors living anywhere but Nine Towers, and why was the Carse located on the old castle grounds? Surely the history books would offer an explanation, but they didn't. As before, when she had gone looking for information on the Carse, Janiah read every history book until her eyes watered. There was no mention of an old castle. Janiah was starting to suspect that someone had gone to great lengths to rewrite her family's history. Janiah flung the nearest book across the room. As hard as she tried, she could think of no way to see where the old castle had stood. A royal dwelling would have been a landmark, the sort that appears on maps. Every 100 years the royal cartographer was charged with updating the official maps of the monarchy. The history books may not have mentioned the karst, but the maps definitely would. Janiah left the mounds of books behind and burrowed through the cartographer's archives, collecting every map and laying them all out side by side on the floor. She started with the very first map, the one ordered by King Nizard, who created the monarchy. She had to squint, but there it was. The karst was nothing more than a pinprick in the right center of the map, its name scrawled in such tiny print as to make it nearly invisible, and there was the royal family's first castle. The next map, drawn 100 years later, was the first to show 9 towers. It, too, depicted the karst, but now it was a small circle, the size of her thumbnail. The old castle was gone. Janiah walked along the path of maps showing 1,000 years of history. Something cold and unyielding blossomed in her chest with each step. The maps told a story that perhaps no one else had ever seen, unless, of course, someone viewed all the maps at once as Janiah was doing. The karst was growing. Each map showed the black spot had doubled, sometimes tripled, in size during the 100 years since the last map was drawn. Janiah quickly did the sums in her head. At the rate the karst was growing, it would overtake Emberfell in the next 100 years, and 9 towers in the century after that, if not sooner. If it continued to grow, it would eventually engulf the entire monarchy. Janiah ran from the library. She had to write Anne immediately to tell her what she learned, but as she returned to Ravis Tower, she burrowed into the chief healing coming from her queen's bedchambers. Janiah's arms went limp when she saw the look in the healer's eyes. "The queen has fallen into a deep slumber," the chief healer said, his hand gently squeezing the princess's shoulder. Janiah had been told this might happen, and she knew what it meant. The chances of the queen's ever awakening were very slim. That is the end of chapter 15.